Good morning, everyone. This is Chris Sarda at Cast and Comics on Instagram and Twitter, and this is show number 4. I'm surprised that mostly this goal is just to get these 5 done. I'm surprised that I'm still here. Normally, I decide to go do something else, but I have to say I'm having fun doing it. It's mostly about doing it at night before I go to bed, or just want to sit and veg out and read. Wednesday's especially hard for that because I have a bunch of new comics that are sitting there staring at me, and normally this is when I would read them when the kids are asleep and everything. But I'll figure that timing out. Luckily, I was able to read most of them today. So a lot of times this Wednesday, if I do this on Wednesday, it'll be more of a haul show. But I did read a good chunk of them today, so I'll be able to talk a little bit about them. So that is going to be the basis of this show. It's going to be a little bit more what I guess I typically do on this channel, which is either a comic haul or a lightning review or talk about what if or whatever, right? So it's going to be more of that basis. Probably mostly what I'm going for, but I don't read 7 comic books a day anymore. Maybe when the baby's a little bit older, that will start happening. So let's get to it. 4 days in a row. We'll make it 5, and then I'll just never do this again. So how about that? That's what'll come of this. So I guess I'll start off with, since there's a bunch of comics to talk about, and I'll make that in one chunk. I did just watch What If, and I watched it on time, and so I'm somewhat current. Although, all of those What If, whenever there's the hot YouTube show, not show on YouTube, but that YouTube talks about. So any Star Wars show, any Marvel show, everyone gets so excited to get like their video on like 3 a.m. or something like that. So I am somewhat timely, but there's like probably 350 What If videos out there already. And often I'm not going to watch them in time, just like Star Wars Visions. I'm watching that slow. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a different show. But What If I was able to, it's contingent on my wife feeling like watching it. And she gets just as excited for these. But if she didn't feel like that show we're watching together, and if she didn't feel like watching it, then we would wait on it, which is what happened a couple of weeks ago. We had to watch 2 of them in a row or something. The Marvel shows are a little bit of friction between me and my wife, because I do want to watch them somewhat timely, where my wife is more like, let's watch them together, whenever that may or may not be. It could be 4 weeks, so and the movies are even more difficult with kids now, because I'm lucky, right? My wife really buys into like the Marvel movies and Star Wars. She loves it. It was it still is our thing to do, something that we've just had fun. We got married the year Iron Man came out, right? So basically our entire marriage has been these movies that I got her into. So when the kids came along, and I don't always want to wait. Sometimes I'll go on Thursday alone, which I guess makes me sound like a real dick, but I do make sure that we watch it together later. Except for Shang-Chi, I made her go to that alone because I had already watched it twice because I fell asleep twice. So this episode of What If was big. That's the biggest. The one thing you could say about it is how big it was. So it connects somewhat indirectly to the Party Thor episode of last week. And I knew that wasn't going to fit, or else it was going to be really weird, because you had like a comedy episode, Party Thor, with all these weird cameos, and then Vision Ultron shows up. And there was something in the back of my head was hoping that it wasn't going to be another joke episode with something, with as cool as Ultron looked with the Infinity Stones and whatnot. And we were lucky that it wasn't. But when I watched it, the show that episode and the one that's going to continue from it seems so huge. It just seems massive, and like movie massive. And it makes me think, like, what could we possibly do in the films that, I'm going to shell out, if it's Shang-Chi, $40 for, because I paid for my brother's ticket the first time around, and then I had to go again. What are we gonna, like, what can we pay for that's as big as what this What If was, where this Vision Ultron with the Infinity Stones figures out how to get into the multiverse. I mean, no one else figured that. You got a whole Loki series where he just sort of poked and prodded at it, and this one just is gigantic. So that's the initial thing I thought was this episode is the most wide-ranging, biggest episode that can have the most effect on the multiverse than Doctor Strange ever could have, right? So maybe they'll surprise me. So maybe the Multiverse of Madness will come out, and I'll get surprised, and I'll be like, "Oh, they did it!" Or maybe this next episode of What If is going to unwind it all, and it never happened. But yeah, it was enjoyable. But you're just thinking about just how massive it is. And I think one of the other things that got me too is the character that is able to transcend into the multiverse, almost be that original Galactus. Make it so that Uatu has to break his oath, which I mean, it's happened so many times now, but originally happened with Galactus, right? How many bigger things have happened on Earth since Fantastic Four, 49, 50, and whatever, that Uatu has not decided to break his oath for. But yeah, so this is that sort of that Galactus level event. But I found it weird that it was Ultron getting the Infinity Stones. You'd think that if in the infinite multiverse, Ultron getting the Infinity Stones could transcend the where the Watcher was watching everything, that there'd be a lot of other characters if they got a hold of the Infinity Stones that probably could do the same thing, Galactus being one. So is there a multiverse of multiverses where Galactus is doing? I don't know. And something else I enjoyed about this, what started prior, but what is now happening, is move that chair out of the way. How about that? Is that we're leaving the one-shot nature of What If. We had a good little chunk where it was just fun little one-shot stories where we got to hear or learn something about certain characters and how it would all change, like what If is supposed to be. But over the course of a long season, and I don't even know how many episodes this is, that that would just be cute, and now feeling like these stories that we've seen, that we're watching them for a reason, that they might be all weaved together a little bit, makes me more excited about this. And it's hard to say because I do like the idea of just one shots and let's move on and being creative. But at the same time, it grabs you a little bit more when you have something serial that matches and there's Easter eggs going back and forth. And it's the point of comics, right? So very exciting What If, a huge episode, like gigantic in the MCU, huge kind of thing. And yeah, there's going to be a season 2, that's for sure. So and now I'm going to move on to some comics. Now I do have a small stack of physical comics I bought. Those are right there. But one comic I meant to talk about yesterday that I didn't say anything about because I forgot, and also because it's right now it's digital only, is Snow Angels here. Now this is I don't even know why, to be honest, that this has been one of my favorite comics that I'm reading. Maybe it stays with me a little bit more because it's really the only digital comic that I'm reading as it comes out. Where like on Marvel Unlimited and DC Universe Infinite, DCUI, I'm just reading the older comics that come through, and most of those are ones that I just didn't want to spend more money on. But this is one that I get at on Comixology. It's a Comixology original. So originally it was only going to be digital, these things. Over the last year, I think Dark Horse got some kind of contract where they'll start printing them. So when this comes out in print, I strongly recommend it. It is Jeff Lemire and Jock. So that is, that's a selling point on its own, right? But what's interesting is that it doesn't feel like a Jeff Lemire book, at least not completely. And Jock's work on it is really good, but it's really simple. It's something, it almost feels, for what Jock's level is, it feels like a sketch, But just because the nature of the book is to happen in this vast, snowy expanse, even when it's really simple, it just feels good to me. And not a ton is going on in this picture, right? I mean, someone's falling. This is the newest issue, so I probably should have started with issue 1 so I didn't give these spoilers, but it's not going to be bad. It's not going to be crazy spoilers or anything like that. Mostly talking about the art, you know. And yeah, as far as skill wise, it doesn't feel like Jock's best work by a long shot, but it just fits the narrative, everything that's happening in it. And of course, the storytelling in the panels, very cinematic here. The way the characters are drawn are, again, simple but really fun. And then what really brings us in, it just feels like a very unique Jeff Lemire story, a very unique story in general. I generally, you know, I've started to put a lot of stuff together, obviously, because we're 4 issues into season 2, and I can't remember how long season 1 was, either 4 or 6 issues. And even now, though, even though they've revealed some stuff, I can tell you I'm not really sure what's going to happen, and that's always something that that intrigues me. You know, look at this, just open space, and this is a little bit more compact. The vast majority of this series has been very very empty and expansive, and just felt like this unending emptiness. And it's interesting because obviously they're on a planet where this is happening, but the feeling that it gives me is just an infinite amount of space, and who knows what's out there. And I can contrast that against the movie or the show The Expanse, ironically called The Expanse. But those books, at least, I've only watched the first season because I only gotten through 2 or 3 books. But those books, at least, feel really tight, actually, because at least at the beginning, it really only takes place within the solar system. So you're in the solar system, and obviously it's going to take up way more space than whatever planet this is in Lemire and Jock's story, Snow Angels. But in The Expanse, to me, it felt very compact. It felt like it's just a bunch of countries sitting around, you know. So I've really enjoyed Snow Angels, mostly from the perspective of its simplicity, in both writing and the drawing, but then how much there's actually going on out there in that snow that looks completely empty. I'm going to move on, my friends, and I'm going to show what I picked up, and then I'll also talk about, for the stuff I did read, I'll talk about those. Let's start with a few things I haven't gotten to yet. I grabbed Star Wars Vader's Castle, Star Wars Adventures. So this is the IDW books. They recently lost the license to it. So I think we're just going to get the rest of the year, maybe a little bit into the new year. But this, I didn't grab number 1, so I'm going to have to go find number 1. But when I flipped through it, the art looked really cool, and that looks like Space Usagi. There literally is a Space Usagi Yojimbo, for those that didn't know, but it looks like Space Usagi Yojimbo. So I guess that's a little, if I would have opened up to that page, I might have been like, oh, that's Star Wars Adventure, cartoony. But you know, I enjoyed the Star Wars High Republic adventures, Star Wars Adventures High Republic, and I hadn't even really read any of these adventures books. They look too kiddie to me, and I know they were mostly out of continuity. So see, that looks cool to me, I guess. And now I'm a little bit more open to it. I know the Ghost of Vader's Castle is I think a short story somewhere. So I guess I'll be reading it in comic form. And then we have a Batman Reptilian number 4 by the great Garth Ennis, one of my favorites ever, and Liam Sharp, who I was a bit critical of his art in issue 1, liked it in issue 2. I have not read issue 3, so that's why this book is unread. It looks like we're back to being very dark, but you know what? There's going to be, I might as well not even show this on here because you can't see it on the camera. But there looks like some pretty cool things here. So I enjoyed number 2 a lot, so I'm sure I'm going to enjoy number 3. And I love this version of Batman. Obviously, this is one of those things where you don't want all your Batman to have this attitude, but it's cool because it's Garth Ennis and it's his viewpoint. Oh, and this one I might even read this after I'm done recording here. Echolands 2 has come out. I didn't realize part 2 came out because the director's cut for part 1 came out, and I pre-ordered that. That's coming in the mail. But number 2 was out, and I got very excited. I got the B cover, but number 1 was really good, and I hope we get to the next level in this issue. And the reason you bought this ticket was for the art, and the story was pretty good in number 1, and I'm sure it can go much further in number 2. But this is, I don't know, is that BB-8 right there? I don't know. That'd be great if it was BB-8. There's a chance that this is that kind of book. And then the presentation, of course, is in landscape mode. So I guess I could put it like this. I don't know. Is in landscape mode, so that adds a little bit of color to the whole thing. And what do we got? We got some letters back there. Last time we had a whole October Echoland. Last time we had a whole, there's a raw cut edition for number 2. Last time we had a bunch of pages of what he was listening to while he was drawing Echolands. So that's it of physicals that I have not read. Here's a small stack of what I did read. I'm gonna shoot up some of the books that that are coming in on pre-order. So I got the email saying that they came in from Gmart, is where I do some pre-order shopping. But obviously they haven't gotten to me yet. That'd be a while. So first up are a couple of trade paperbacks. So the Autumnal or the Autumnal. I looked this up on how to properly pronounce that, and I'm 94% sure it was Autumnal. But I read number 1 and 2 of this and really liked it. But that's where I started. Around that time, so that would have been 8 months ago or something like that. I got a lot more. This is when I tried to be a lot more strict on switching to trade, and so Autumnal was one of them that I stopped buying, even though I liked it. And for most of Volt's horror, I'm in on it. I'm not a horror guy, but the way Volt does it makes me more interested. And then the other trade paperback I got was Berserker. So I have to admit, I like the art in number 1. That's the only one I've read, is number 1, and I like the art. I was feeling what most people felt, that it was just a bunch of hoopla, as far as like it just being violent and sort of pointless. Lee from Whack Comics has been pretty famous for just destroying lots of Berserkers, and in one, I think, of their music video, he has a stack of Berserkers, and he often complains about or mentions how he doesn't. In Australia, you don't really buy that many singles. But somehow he bought a bunch of Berserkers, and he destroys them a lot in very different and creative ways. So despite not being really into it, one, it was really cheap. I think it was like $6.99 or $7.50 or something like that with the discount. But also it reads fast enough, and it's relevant, right? I do this YouTube thing, so I do want to read the full arc and see what's up in it, and maybe even judge it for what it is, which is, right, it's supposed to be a TV show. And hey, I don't love it that comics set themselves up like that, but if this one's so explicitly supposed to be like that, then why not? I'll be like, well, how good of a show will this make? And then in the single issues, I had a handful here. This is one I forgot I ordered. This one's called Verge, and this is from Red 5 Comics, so a very small publisher. And the blurb for this is: a mysterious time travel event known as The Verge had brought thousands of people from across all of history to New York City. Vikings and samurai and Romans and Mayans and cavemen and thousands of others live in a vast and turbulent melting pot. It's like the opposite of Snow Angels. Connie Liu, an NYPD detective, investigates the murder of 3 samurai, a case which threatens to turn the divisions of the city into all-out war. So Silvio DB is the artist here. It's written by Bryce McKellen. But when you choose to write a story with Vikings and samurai and Romans, the art's going to be very important in it. It doesn't look too bad on the cover there, but if you're gonna choose to do something like that, a lot of my grade on this is going to be on how cool it looks. So that's The Verge. That's from Red 5 Comics. and that'll come in a couple weeks. I didn't grab this off the shelf, and this is also the card variant. So this is the new Darkhold comic, and I don't know if it's just called Darkhold or if it's called Darkhold Doctor Doom. I'm honestly into this. I like the Magic Marvel stuff. I like that world, the Ghost Riders and the Brother Doo-Doos, Brother Doo-Doo, the Brother Voodoos, even though I don't know that much about him. Doctor Strange when he mixes in, Midnight Suns, all of the Dark Horse and Blade and all of that. So I'm happy the Darkhold is back, and I'm interested in that. So, you know, it was one of those, though, where I'm trying to read as much as Marvel on Marvel Unlimited as possible, but you know, I'll grab stuff occasionally, I guess. Maybe I'll read number 1 and then wait after that. So, and also I really like the card variant. And I think we'll talk about this in X-Men, but there's, you know, the Scarlet Witch is in this. And so there's some like timeline screw ups going on here, which is pretty funny. And most of those are because of COVID. We're still feeling the ripple effects of the COVID effect. Spawn 322. I read these immediately. I really like them, but then again, it's the kind of book that wouldn't necessarily make my top 10s if I were ranking them. It's just, to me, it's just fun comics. And it's the kind of comic you could really jump in at any point. The first issue you jump in, and you may not feel that way, but then just things connect and they connect and they connect. It's never ending and just keeps moving on. I mean, it's not even really told in arcs, to be honest. Like, it just continues on. So, and it's fun. It's fun to see Spawn have a little bit of a renaissance with a bunch of other issues coming out. And I always grab those side Spawn issues from the 90s, like Violator, which Alan Moore wrote, actually. And Sam and Twitch had a cool series. I only have like 3 issues of that, but I enjoyed them. You know, Medieval Spawn, et cetera, et cetera. So here's the comic that I enjoy, but I don't really know what's happening. I feel like Undiscovered Country, I should have all these things to say about it, but it's pretty basic, and I don't love the Camuncoli art. Or what's his name? Camuncoli, yeah. I don't love Camuncoli's art in general, but he seems to get a lot of work, so it means he must be on time. It means he must be a hard worker, but it takes a little bit away for me. But then at the same time, I read a lot of comics that he draws. So that means that he draws well enough, he draws fast enough, and I enjoy the comics for the most part, even though I'm complaining about the art. So that means he probably tells the story well. So I got to leave Camuncoli alone a little bit. And then this I pre-ordered and it came in. And this is one of those things that you know about if you're on Twitter. But this is by Frank Gogol, and he got semi-called out for some racist / sexist stuff. I mean, I already ordered this book, so it's coming in. I'm going to read it anyway. This is Unborn. He's gone quiet on Twitter. He used to have a YouTube show. He's gone quiet on that too. He seemed like he was a little bit outright about hiding his politics, which is funny, being outright about hiding something. But hey, I don't know the story there, and I got that book and I'll read it. But it doesn't make him look in bad light or very good light. And I think he was at the table at Rose City Comic Con. So I don't know. He's been quiet on the internet, but he hasn't disappeared, and Scout still seems to be supporting him. So who knows what'll come with that. I will read that book. Probably won't stick with it because I got a lot of other books to read and I don't need to deal with that. But that's Unborn #1. So that's like some meshing of Alien and Power Rangers or something. And the people that have read it said it's good. So I guess I'll give that a read, and then we'll see where we go from there. What's funny though is that, you know, if something gets hot on the internet, then, and these are mostly people I agree with, you know, politically and socially, but if something has to get hot on the internet for them to really come down on, you know, the punishment or the canceling or whatever, Dynamite is an example there. But I mean, if Scout had him at the table at Rose City, that's a little weird, right? But if that came out, I don't think much would happen with it. And I don't know that I would care, or that matters to me, or that people that, you know, publish with Scout, you know what I mean? Like you could just connect everything to some kind of some level of being canceled, you know, and it gets very frustrating. But it is good to point that stuff out so that especially men know it's not safe to act in a certain way anymore. Anyway, enough of that. Let's move on to reviews of the ones I did read. Die Number 20. This was a most anticipated book. I feel like the big emotional stuff happened in issue 19. This book had more of the explanation of what die was and what it meant. You see all that big lettering right there. That's you know, that's die somewhat explaining, not really. You know, when you read Kieron Gillen, you're not going to get everything put nicely in a box. That's not to say that plot lines aren't you know, aren't buttoned up and ended. He didn't leave anything open or anything like that. But yeah, you get good stuff and a lot of stuff open for interpretation. So Die Number 20, I may do a more in-depth preview of that in a little bit. Crossover number 8. Oh man, Crossover left the you know, the stock cover. So now it's going to feel really weird, especially if I don't bag and board these because I don't think they're worth that much. This is a little bit like Undiscovered Country. I mean, I'm a little underwhelmed, but I'm interested enough that I'm sticking with it. So this issue was good. A lot of jokes on Zdarsky, which I like. That was definitely the best episode, or the best issue was the one shot that Zdarsky did. You know, other than that, it's eventually the you know, all the comic book characters are in this world kind of thing. You know, eventually that dies down, and then the story that you have built into this, you know, it's just moving a little bit slow, like the character story that's built into it. It's not as you know, super. Thor number 17. I've been on and off on this book. Another Kate's book, right? And this one I really liked though. It is, you know, it's dealing with, I think one of the aspects I like about it is that it's dealing with Thor's family. And I think we're going to, you know, that's going to be left to the wayside a little bit because we're going to start talking about the hammer a little bit more. But, you know, I didn't read a lot of Thor when Angela was around, when Angela came into the Marvel universe. I have a few issues that I've never read, like in, you know, in boxes over there. But it was really funny. So Thor and Hera and Angela and Odin all going back and forth on each other was entertaining to me. You know, of course there's action, so pretty basic all around. But this issue worked for me. Thor has been, I would call Thor very good, but you know, there's been points where I've not been as into it. And then I hear people are more into those points where I liked like the first 6, and then people are like, eh. So I don't think it's grabbed the people yet. I think it's just pretty good. And it's really hard to follow up what Jason Aaron did, even though no one cared very much about what Jason Aaron did the last couple of years. But, you know, Star Wars, we are still in War of the Bounty Hunters. And this is an example of a book that, or an event that really works, feels like it's good pacing. And the tie-ins actually tie in a cool way. But you know, just because the tie-ins tie into what happened in the main event book so well that you feel a little bit frozen in time. So this would read a lot better for you guys that are reading it on Marvel U. I would read great there because you could churn through a bunch of them. And you know, there's a point where Darth Vader is bidding on Han Solo with a bunch of the underworld, and I saw that scene like in 3, you know, from a different perspective, which was cool, but from 3 different viewpoints, you know, so it feels a little slow. I've been reading this, I think since May or something is when the alpha came out, and then it really started in July or something like that. I don't know. Let's do a little. I should just save this. I think This Week in X-Men will come out. Just since it's, you know, it's still pretty quick, but I want to be able to talk about this a lot more, or maybe do its own video. We did read all 3 X-Men books today, and they were all wonderful books, actually, especially Inferno. If you hate X-Men, this is the book for you. Destroy It All, right? And then Sword was wonderful, and Wolverine was great. I love Solemn, and some cool stuff happens there, but I think I'll do just a separate This Week in X-Men video. Hey, guys, I'm gonna cut it off here, and I gotta cut it off. 30 minutes. God damn it! I almost got under 30 minutes. My name is Chris Arda at Casting Comics on Instagram and Twitter. See you guys later.